Why was the DA so eager to get their hands on the so-called spy tapes? What do the so-called spy tapes mean for South Africa and its president? Is the DA trying to discredit the ANC and its leadership through the so-called spy tapes? And is the ANC truly unmoved by the tapes, or are they putting on a brave front? What time is it? It's question time. DA leader Helen Zille has confirmed there is sufficient evidence on the recordings for a review application of the decision to withdraw corruption charges against President Zuma. She revealed the Zuma spy tapes comprise of 36 conversations that were recorded over 5 months. The DA leader is continuing with party's case, asking for the corruption charges against President Zuma to be reinstated. The recordings were used as justification by the National Prosecuting Authority to withdraw charges against the then Deputy President of the ANC, who was to become president in 2009. The ANC says it is not worried about the revelations the DA claimed to have found in the contents of the so-called spy tapes. My guest today is the chairperson of the DA Federal Executive, James Self. Mr. Self, welcome to the show. Indeed, the DA seem to have gotten a fat worm here. Is this how you're considering it?
Well, certainly the tapes are very significant, but they are not the only information that has now been made available to us. Yesterday, we received the reduced record from retired Judge Noel Hurt.
Yes.
And together with the tapes, and this reduced record, we believe that we have a solid case to show that the decision to drop over 800 charges of corruption, money laundering, fraud and theft against Jacob Zuma was an irrational decision that was taken for political and not legal grounds. And we intend to go to court to prove that.
So what does the DA want? You want President Jacob Zuma's head?
No, it's not about him.
Who is it about? There's nobody else there.
There's a much more important principle, and that is the principle that the National Prosecuting Authority must be in a position to prosecute people without fear, favour or prejudice, as is allowed for in the Constitution. And unless that principle is established very clearly in law, we will not have the rule of law in South Africa. We will not have a constitutional democracy.
So right now, what do you want to see happen?
We want to go to court and we want to have that decision to drop the prosecution reviewed and set aside.
So that President Zuma can face the charges?
Well, if he is innocent, as he maintains he is, then he will be in a position to prove his innocence in a court of law.
Yeah, but it was a prosecuting authority that had said they were withdrawing the charges. Why don't you have confidence in that?
That's right. No, we certainly don't have confidence in that decision because we believe that owing to the politicization of the National Prosecuting Authority at that time, the decision to taken to discontinue the prosecution was taken for political reasons and not out of any sense of legality. And we believe, with the documents and with the tapes before us, we will be able to prove that.
But you are aware that you're not going to achieve much so far, right?
Why do you say that? I mean, the principle of establishing the impartiality and independence of the National Prosecuting Authority is vital. It's worth every bit of litigation we've brought, every cent we've spent on it.
Okay, now give me your understanding of where the process is legally right now. Hence, I'm saying to you that you don't seem to shall go any far with this matter, at least for now.
Well, we have got now the spy tapes,
yes,
and we have got the reduced record. We now have until the 23rd of September to supplement the original affidavit that I deposed in 2009,
yes,
in which I pointed out that prima facie the decision to drop the prosecution was irrational. we are now in a position to supplement that affidavit and make it more convincing. The National Prosecuting Authority and presumably Mr. Zuma have then got 30 days in which to reply to that affidavit, and then the matter heads for court, and we would hope that this matter could be before the court either towards the end of this year or early next year.
Okay. Now, Mr. Selfie, why do you then omit to mention that Judge Hurt will first have to remove the confidential representations made to the NPA by President Zuma, because those are privileged?
Yes.
Yeah, but why don't you tell us about it?
Well, we've already got the reduced record. Actually, it was handed to us yesterday.
Yes.
So we know now what we can use and what we can't use.
Yes.
And actually, Judge Hurt removed very little of the record. So we are in a position now to prove, in our view, that that decision was taken irrationally, based on the papers that we have, based on the recordings that we have.
You are a political organization.
That is correct.
Why should we believe that indeed what you are in pursuit of here is justice and not political mileage?
Well, because sometimes you have to pursue political battles in other arenas. Now, this decision was taken by the National Prosecuting Authority. The only avenue open to us was to take this matter on judicial review, and that is what we've done. And the NPA and President Zuma have taken every possible avenue to try and block the release of those tapes, to try and stop the record being released, and they've done so at the expense of the South African taxpayer. We have persisted because we believe that there is a very important legal principle here, and unless we establish by legal precedent that the NPA is an independent institution as contemplated in the Constitution, we will not have a rule of law in South Africa worth speaking of.
Okay. There's some contradiction in what you've said, and I'll tell you what it is only after the break. This is question time.
Africa is growing at a rapid rate.
A huge part of this African growth is technological innovation.
Like a group of students hard at work in Uganda developing tools that will save lives. Or an African-developed payment method making the public transport industry cashless in Kenya.
You book me through M-Pesa.
There are apps only for people who live here. And the continent is accepting the growth of modern technology usage in people's everyday lives.
The ICT revolution now belongs to Africa.
This is information that matters to us.
To find out a bit more about social media and technology news, join Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 7:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today joins us from our Cape Town studios and is the DA Federal Chairman, Mr. James Selfie. Now, Mr. Selfie, your leader, Mayor Helen Zille, says, whatever the cynics may say, our primary motivation is not to defeat Jacob Zuma. It is not even to gain political advantage for the DA. That's not what you're saying.
No, I am saying that what Ms. Zille said is absolutely correct. At issue here is the principle of the independence of the National Prosecuting Authority.
And political mileage.
No, there's no political mileage.
No,
that one can
Mr.
get. It's
Selfie,
about the
come on
defense
now.
of the-
Be honest with our viewers.
Well, I
There's
am
no
being
way
honest.
that you're just going to do this for the sake of the public. You obviously want this to be done under the name of the DA, and you want the public to say the DA has fought this battle for us as South Africans, and we therefore love it.
Well, please don't put words in my mouth, because I'm
Okay.
not putting words in yours.
No, I'm not putting words in your
what?
mouth. I'm giving you an analysis here.
What
Oppose it
I'm saying
if you
is what
want
I've
to.
said. I'm saying, as I said all the way along, that the issue here is the independence of the National Prosecuting Authority. Now, I personally was part of the process that negotiated and enacted the South African Constitution in 1996. I feel very passionately about that document. I think that that document is what sets us apart and defines us as a free and democratic nation. And that means that we go to whatever lengths we have to go to defend it and to defend the principles that are contained in it. Now, that decision that was taken in 2009 flies in the face of Section 179 of the Constitution, and it is our duty to take it to court. And the fact that there might be political mileage that flows from it is incidental, not central.
Okay. The ANC says it's not worried. They are not bothered by what you're trying to do here.
Yeah, well, the ANC, I think, is putting a very brave face on matters, because I think that they were complicit in that decision at that time, or at least factions of the ruling party, and they certainly have been at pains all the way along to be as obstructive as possible in this whole process. But we persisted, and we have now got the reduced record and the tapes, and we are now in a position to go with the major review application, and we are confident that we are going to win that application.
You seem to believe quite a lot in the courts. Am I correct?
I have enormous confidence in the courts at all the levels, and I think that, again, is one of the great features of our constitutional democracy, that there are checks and balances, that we can go to courts in order to enforce and defend our rights.
I'm going to ask you this question once again, hoping that this time around you'll give me a clear-cut answer. Will the DA be happy if President Zuma was to go to jail?
I happen to be the Correctional Services spokesperson for the DA.
Yes.
I don't wish a jail sentence on my worst enemy. But what is important is that if there is a criminal prosecution, then that criminal prosecution must be adjudicated in a trial court, and the decision as to whether or not the person is guilty or innocent must not be taken by the National Director of Public Prosecutions, but indeed by a court.
No, but the
the
NPA, Mr. Selfie, never said he's not guilty.
No, but they said they were going to discontinue the prosecution.
On
now,
what
why did they
basis?
say that?
But they said
Well,
so, Mr.
they said-
Selfie, come on.
they-
I thought
they
you read
said-
that document.
They said that there was political interference and there was a political agenda behind the prosecution.
And the case
In other
was
words,
not winnable.
No, not on the basis of the information we have.
What do you have? Share with us.
We have, well, I'm not in a position to share with you, unfortunately. I wish I could. But there's a decision of the Cape High Court that says that you are not allowed to produce or to publicize information that you have obtained by an application of this nature until the matter is before the court. And at that occasion, we will share with the South African public exactly what information we have on which we base this decision.
So, did you say that you do not want President Zuma to go to jail?
I don't, frankly, want anybody who isn't a very, very serious criminal to go to South African jails, because, in fact, if you go to jail, you emerge more criminalized
So
than
how
when
do
you
you
went in.
classify President Zuma?
I don't classify him as anybody. I believe the person is innocent until proven guilty.
Okay.
But what I do want is I do want a trial to take place.
And you will respect its outcome?
Of course we will respect its outcome like we respect every other court outcome in South
You
Africa.
don't. I mean, you wouldn't
We
have...
do.
No, you don't. You wouldn't have been at
We do.
No, Mr. Selfie. The Supreme Court of Appeal is quite a higher court. Which means you lost it at lower courts.
That's correct. And
Now,
the
why didn't you
Constitution...
respect that decision?
Well, because the Constitution provides that one can appeal a decision that is manifestly wrong. And we took that opportunity, and Judge Navsa handed down a judgment in our favour. Now, it was equally available to Jacob Zuma's legal team to go and appeal that to the Constitutional Court. That's what the structure of our courts provides. And doubtless, if there was a trial that was to take place, exactly the same process would be followed. There would be appeals, because that's what our Constitution provides. And it's a great Constitution. It's worth defending that system.
I put it to you that you are going to try and milk this as much as possible to try and ensure that you discredit President Jacob Zuma. Am I correct?
Well, you're sounding a bit like Harry Nell, but no. The answer is not. What we are doing is we are trying to establish beyond any doubt, as we did in the Simelane case, that the National Prosecuting Authority of South Africa needs to be headed up by competent people who can do the job of work and who are able to prosecute people in South Africa without fear, favour or prejudice. That is the issue. If there is some incidental publicity, then that is incidental. It is certainly not why we are engaged in this matter. And that's what I put back to you.
Okay. I put it to you that we're taking a short commercial break and we'll return shortly. This is Question Time.
Zoom into Africa. This is Malawi. The president is Professor Peter Mutharika. Malawi got independent from the United Kingdom on 6 July in 1964. The population is more than 15 million people. One of Malawi's major languages is English. Monetary unit, Malawi Kwacha.
Cameroon's economic capital, a unique art collection is on display. Titled Yesterday's Memory, Tomorrow's Memory.
We are trying to preserve this heritage despite many things that have changed in the designing, embroidery and the model.
If I'm telling you, you don't like it, I call it defeat.
Join Musam Khalipi on Afro Showbiz every Saturday at 19:30 CAT.
South Africans survived 2014.
Many of us actually were given bursaries by state-owned enterprises, but the state shrunk, telecom was privatized, and now we are sitting with huge unemployed people, but huge backlogs in terms of infrastructure that could develop the same young people.
It's in our hands, and our future is up to us. It's a tough year, and tough decisions will have to be made by the government. It's an election year, which makes it difficult to make tough decisions. I mean, it's tough to make tough decisions. It's especially tough in an election year.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is DA Federal Chairman, Mr. James Selfie. Mr. Selfie, let's move away from the tapes and just go into Parliament itself. How would you describe the situation in Parliament so far?
Well, I think Parliament's decorum and Parliament's operations have been cheapened in the last while by a combination of antics and the inability of the presiding officers properly to maintain control. And I don't think that the South African public are indeed particularly enamoured with the spectacle of people behaving in the way that they do.
So cheapened by who? The EFF?
Well, cheapened by antics that are less to do with holding the executive properly to account and more to do with grabbing headlines.
Now, the DA itself has not been well behaved.
Well, sometimes one gets provoked beyond description.
Beyond reasonable doubt.
Beyond reasonable doubt, yes. But you know, there's a difference between making a serious political point and facing the consequences of that, and acting in as if this was some sort of comedy drama.
Let's talk about the idiot statement.
Yeah, well, my colleague David Mania presumably was provoked into making that statement, and I think that the presiding officers took exactly the correct decision in requiring him to leave.
Are you going to take any further steps?
No, because the cut and thrust of parliamentary debate is such that occasionally one uses words that are unparliamentary, and then my colleagues must take the consequences of that. It's never happened to me personally in 21 years of being in Parliament, but I suppose it could.
But are you saying that by not taking any action, you are condoning that? And if not, don't you recognize the fact that he has brought the party into disrepute?
No, I think the Deputy Minister brought the ruling party into disrepute.
Yeah, but let's leave the ANC and focus on the DA.
Well, I don't think calling somebody an idiot when that's self-evidently true, it might be unparliamentary, but it's palpably true, is necessarily something that the DA should be taking disciplinary action against one of its members.
So you also agree that the Deputy Minister is an idiot?
I do, indeed.
Is that something you would be willing to repeat in the House?
Well, you know, I won't repeat it in the House because in a bizarre way, if I repeat it in the House, I would be asked to withdraw and then, if I refused, be thrown out. The bizarre situation in South Africa at the moment is that you have greater freedom of speech on the Grand Parade than you do in the National Assembly. And I think that that is a great matter for concern. I think we've become too constricted by upholding the dignity and observing the rules of order.
Yes.
In many other parliaments in the world, you can get away with much more robust language. And indeed, as my colleague John Steenhuisen pointed out during the debate on Parliament earlier this year, even in the apartheid Parliament, there was greater freedom of speech than we enjoy at the moment.
Whoa. The Nkandla Committee, if I may call it that, has been constituted now. There's a chairperson. Let's see,
Yes.
what's DA's role there?
Well, the DA's role there is to get to the bottom of what happened to the 246 million rands that was spent on the security upgrades at Nkandla.
But you know.
And who was responsible? I beg your pardon?
You know what happened.
Well, we don't know what happened, actually.
Come on, Mr. Self. You know that the money went to the contractor who had inflated the invoices, and the other money went to construction.
With the greatest respect, there was a finding made by the Public Protector, and the Public Protector provided that the President needed to confer with the National Treasury and pay back that portion of the costs that he had benefited from via the security upgrades.
Yeah.
That is the central point of the Public Protector's report. So, I mean, I've had a look at the SIU documents that were lodged in the Pietermaritzburg High Court. I see there that the procedure that is laid down is that the South African Police Service and the South African National Defence Force must present plans to the President, who must approve them. Now, if the President approved them and the money was spent on personal upgrades to his personal residence, then he needs to pay it back. Our job is, amongst other things, to determine that and to enforce the corrective action, the remedial action that was laid down by the Public Protector.
Do you think you're going to have any meaningful role there, realizing that you're a minority?
Well, if that was the argument, I would never have joined the Progressive Party in the 1970s and fought the system of apartheid in the way that I did, because we were in a huge minority at that time. But we believed in certain values. We still do believe in certain values. And it's participating in Parliament and in this committee is, amongst others, designed to hold the executive to account, and we intend to do that.
You have in the other parties and specifically the EFF, which has been very vocal on a lot of things. Are you willing to cooperate with them?
Well, we already have cooperated on this particular issue. We were very concerned at the first meeting that the terms of reference were unnecessarily restrictive. We were concerned that the Public Protector's report and the report of the SIU would not be allowed to serve before the committee. We came up with a joint strategy, and we stuck to that strategy, and we managed to have this matter satisfactorily resolved and confirmed at yesterday's meeting. And so we will continue to cooperate with other opposition parties and indeed with other members of the committee from the majority party, because I think everybody on that committee should be motivated by exactly the same motivation, and that is to get to the truth of what actually happened.
Mr. James Selfie, let me thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
That was Question Time for today. A big thank you to you and to our guest. And indeed, we welcome your feedback via email. Our email address is questiontime@sabc.co.za. Our Twitter handle @questiontime24. From me and the rest of the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.